because we have a Seditious Act. So therefore, we don't need Race Relations Act. Actually, in the UK, Race Relations Act is an act that fosters harmonious relationship among the people, among the state and people and various segments. So you have a Race Relations Act. Here, they are not keen in the Race Relations Act because the race relations are maintained by Seditious Act, ISA, Printing and Publishing Act. It's very ironic. There they have an act to foster good relationship. Here they don't want that act because we have other act to keep the relationship. What are those acts? ISA, Seditious Act, and the University Act. So it's looking at it very differently. Anyway, that's how it is now. And Seditious Act is a very old act, 1948. It was introduced by the British. The colonial master introduced this act, and they introduced this act to keep control over the subjects. Now our present government also continued with this act, and they keep us in control. And until 2008, this was one of those feared acts, and many, especially the opposition politicians and many civil rights activists were detained under this act. In fact, it has outlived, after 2008, it has outlived. But they are still keeping it. Maybe they have some purpose. I don't know. So, without much ado, I shall call upon the first speaker for the day. The first speaker for the day is Mr. Jeyaseelen Anthony, who is an advocate. He is now currently teaching law in the Faculty of Law, University of Malaya. He obtained his Masters of Law from the University of Malaya in the year 2006. He has been involved in political and social activism for the past 14 years, and currently he is serving as a councillor in MPPD. He is your local councillor. He has written widely on the issue of seditions in various journals and magazines, and he is the author of the book Seditious Tendency, Political Patronisation of Free Speech and Expression in Malaysia. That's the book he wrote, and today he is with us to give us some more insight into this draconian act, the Seditious Act. So, shall I call upon Mr. Jeyaseelen Anthony to give us what he is thinking about?
Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to everyone present here today. Thank you very much for actually taking time to attending this forum. I'm sure you have better things to do on a Friday night, and you guys actually took time to come here. Today I wish to point out to all of you that there are several salient points to justify my stand as to why the Sedition Act 1948 should be abolished. I think last week or this week, the Prime Minister, had announced that the government is looking at reviewing the Act, right? But it's my stand today, or I think it's going to be our stand today, that the Act should actually be repealed. Okay? And I will give you some reasons as to why this Act should be repealed. Firstly, because I believe that any legislation which imprisons people for holding different views and opinions is, to say the least, draconic and diabolic. Okay? Such a law should not be part of any justice system. Right? To understand why this is so, one needs to inquire into history, to look at the origins of the offense of sedition. Okay? If you look at the origins of the offense of sedition, you will understand that it was made in England. Okay? The English, when they colonized several countries all over the world, a couple of centuries ago, they actually came up with this act to actually suppress dissent. Suppress dissent in the sense that they did not want anyone to talk against the administration or, so to speak, the imperial government of the British government. Okay? So that's why you find that this act was actually implemented very strongly in India, right? And the main objective was to protect the British monarch from being criticized and ultimately being overthrown. Okay? And the law of sedition, if you look at history, it was actually created during a time when the kings and queens, during the 14th century, 15th century, when the kings and queens were believed to have divine powers. Okay, and they were believed to be God sent, and as such, laws dispensed by them were unquestionable. And criticisms of rulers were seen as sinful and unlawful. But today, if you look at it, this belief is no longer true. Okay? And is seen as foolish. Therefore, a law which was created with such a purpose in mind may not be suitable or relevant in present times. Okay, if you look at the whole theme of the Sedition Act, it was actually created during that period, where the kings, when they actually came up with several habits or commands or laws, the people cannot question it. Okay, if they question it, they'll either be imprisoned, beheaded, thrown into the dungeon, or fed to the tigers, or so to speak. Yeah? So it was during that time, right? And the British, when they colonized India and several other countries in Asia, they brought it together with them. Okay? And you will see that there were double standards in the implementation of the Act. Okay? In the common law, in order for someone to be guilty of sedition, that statements uttered or written, okay, should have motives that will incite people to violence. Okay? That means if I say today that please all of you take arms and let's overthrow the king. Okay? That's a statement that incites people to violence, taking up arms. Right? So if someone says that, then he's deemed to have committed an offense of sedition. Okay? But what if that was England at that time, right? But when the law was implemented in India, the ingredient of incitement to violence and disorder was not followed. Okay? What the courts implemented there was that any words which criticize the British imperial government is seditious. Okay? And that's why you find that you find that Mahatma Gandhi and Tilak were charged and convicted under the Sedition Act several times. Okay? Never did once Mahatma Gandhi, as you know, his style of campaigning was ahimsa, that is non-violence. He did not incite anyone to violence because his campaign was non-violence. But yet, he was detained, arrested, and convicted for sedition several times. So you see the double standards being practiced. Right? So that's something about history. Right? Where in England, there was the incitement to violence condition, but in the colonies, there was no such thing. Anything you say against the British crown will be seditious. Okay? But sad to say, the same thing was followed in Malaysia. Okay? The same thing that the British did in the colonies, okay, was actually followed in Malaysia, and up to today, even in Kapal's case today, okay, in the Kapal's case, the judge actually made a note saying that the incitement to violence is actually not a factor to be considered by the court. Okay? As long as the words are seditious, it is seditious. Okay? Intention is not actually a factor that is taken into account. That's why Kapal is in trouble today. Okay? But if the same thing would have happened to Kapal in England, he would have been acquitted of any sedition charges. So that was the same thing that was applied in cases like Lim Guan Eng against one prosecutor, Param Kumasamy against one prosecutor, Bela bin Abdullah against one prosecutor, and string of all of us, Dr. Uy case in the 1960s. Okay? That was a case where they rejected the common law qualification on incitement to violence. Right? Even Param Kumasamy's case, they rejected it. The Malaysian courts. So we are actually following what the British did in India. Okay? We were actually following what our colonizers used to do in India and other parts of the world. And it is even happening today, exactly the same. Right? So you will find that the act itself is of dubious origins. Okay? There was actually one law for the rulers and another law for the ruled. Okay? Now, the Sedition Act 1948 was enacted by the British to suppress communist elements within the Communist Party of Malaysia. Okay? But although communism is no longer a threat, the act has been used against many members of opposition, members of parliament, journalists, okay, and others who pursuing campaigns and imply some sort of criticism against government policies and its institutions. Okay? The irony is the British left Malaysia in 1947. However, their laws never left this. They left Malaysia in 1957, their laws never left them. It's still here. Only a few days ago the ISA was repealed. After how many years? Yeah? But still the Printing Presses Publication Act is still in force. The Sedition Act is still in force. The Official Secrets Act is still in force. And Malaysia doesn't even have a Freedom of Information Act. And the Ministry of Culture and Information, I think, Dr. Lyons actually had called to say that we don't need a Freedom of Information Act. Today, at this time, when countries like India, Canada, countries like some African countries have Freedom of Information Act. So why can't Malaysia? Right? So that's the kind of thing we are actually faced with. Right? And we all know that the Sedition Act has been used selectively. Okay, you'll see. You must have read some press reports that in the Perbakar Power, the by-election was held. There were some comments made by some other politicians saying that non-Malaysians in this country have Perbakar. Okay. The reports launched against him, but no action taken. No action administration was taken against him. Okay. Then you have recently, I think, our great Ibrahim Ali from Perkasa. He has made countless salacious statements, right? But he's got scot-free. No action has taken against him. He has said even worse things than Kapal. Yeah, he's actually said even worse things than Kapal. But he's got scot-free. So that's why the implementation of the Act creates selective prosecution. The Act itself can be abused, and you can see it happening on a daily basis. People have gone scot-free. Okay? And provisions like Section 3(1)(a) to F, which actually list down the meanings of sedition tendencies. Right? You have words like bringing hatred or contempt the government or to excite disaffection against any ruler or against any government. Excite is subject to procure the operation of the government or lawful means. Bringing hatred or contempt or excite disaffection against the use of justice. To raise discontent or disaffection amongst the people. To promote ill feeling or hostility between different races. To question any matter, right, status, opposition, privilege, sovereignty or prerogative protected by the Constitution. So these are the words under the Act which deems to be sedition tendency. So if you say anything against the government or against any ruler which excites disaffection, then you're in sedition. You can't say I didn't have the intention, because intention is not a relevant factor in the Sedition Act. Okay. As long as you say it, you're in for it. Yeah? And this kind of the words like this brings you back to the Dark Ages. You know, when during King Edward's time, during the 16th century. You know, this kind of words. Yeah? Yeah. It actually brings you back to the Dark Ages where people are still fighting with swords. You see it in the movies, yeah? So that's yeah. And sad to say, it's still being practiced today. Yeah? The uncertainty of its provisions is implicit in the words like bringing hatred or contempt or to excite disaffection against any ruler. Section 3(1)(a), the language used here is broad and vague, enough to catch anything and everything, particularly the tendency to question or criticize any government or the policies and actions. There seems to be no line drawn between legitimate criticism and criticism that lead to incitement to violence. So that's the kind of act that we are having now. Right? And anything you say can be brought can be neatly fitted into this the meaning of sedition status is anything you say. If they wanted, they can bring it into this, and you'll be into sedition. Because the words itself is so wide and so broad, they can bring anything into this sections. There isn't any qualification to say what can be brought in and what cannot be brought in. It is bringing anything. That's why a lot of them have been arrested for sedition. Opposition members, yeah. Right? Even more worrying is the fact that the truth or falsity of the words uttered or written are material and will not provide a defense. See, whether the statement is true or not is not a material consideration or not to consider. I quote to you the case of public prosecutor against Patronisation. Justice Azmi in his judgment said, it is immaterial whether the accused's intention or motive was honorable or evil when making the speech. See? As long as he makes the speech, he will be in for sedition. All the judge has to do is to see whether the words are likely to create disaffection against the government, the ruler, or the people. Okay? If it is honest judgment, if finds it likely to actually do that, then the statement is seditious. Okay? Now, what is even more worse? The Sedition Act can also extend its wings to members of Parliament in Parliament. That means you can't, if something you say in Parliament comes within the Section 1 to F, which I mentioned just now, right? Parliamentary privilege is not a defense. Okay, you all have heard of parliamentary privilege where parliamentarians can actually speak without fear or favor, because you voted him to Parliament, and you expect him to speak without fear or favor. But when he goes to the Parliament, if he says something which is seditious, the moment he comes out of Parliament, he'll be arrested. And that's what happened to Patronisation in the 1970s. The moment he came out of Parliament, he was arrested. Right? This is the only, no other Parliament in the world is subjected to such a legislation. Only in Malaysia. Right? It's a Malaysia body. Yeah. So, this is one of it. Right? The problem is there seems to be, it's like the Sedition Act is a catch-all provision. You can do anything with it because of the words in Section 1 to F. The broad, vague terms where anything you say can be fitted into the word seditious tendencies. Okay? Now, in many countries, let me just take you through some of the countries which have actually not used the Sedition Act of actually repealed it. Okay? There has not been a prosecution for sedition in Canada since the 1950s. But in Malaysia, just recently somebody was charged with sedition. I think the most recent person who was charged is Apasima. It's about two years ago. Yeah? But Canada since the 1950s has not been a prosecution under the Sedition Act. Okay? And the Law Reform Commission of Canada, excuse me for my voice, the Law Reform Commission of Canada in 1986 had described the offence of sedition as an outdated and unprincipled law. Okay? And there no longer seems to be a need for separate offence of sedition since the conduct that would be described can be dealt with as incitement, conspiracy, contempt of court, or hate or propaganda. And there are separate laws for it. So in Canada itself, nobody is using the Sedition Act. Right? It's thrown into the dustbin of history. Right? And in Australia, the Anti-Terrorism Act No. 2, 2005, which made substantial amendments to existing sedition laws by repealing several sections of the Crimes Act 1940 concerning sedition. Here they've not used the word sedition at all. They've taken the word of sedition from the laws. Okay, they've concentrated on people who incite others to violence, others to acts of terrorism. Okay? There's no such thing as administration of justice, inciting the king, inciting hatred against the king, inciting hatred against the ruler. There's no such thing like that. No more. It's all gone. In Australia, if you incite someone to terrorist acts or incite someone to violence, right, then you might be not with sedition, but you have things called hate propaganda in Australia. The word sedition has been taken off because they say the word sedition connotes a view that dissent is not tolerated. So that's why they've taken the word sedition out of the comments. Right? They are concentrating more on terrorist acts, terrorism. Okay? We do not have things like exacting disaffection against the king, queen, etc. No more. It's all gone. Okay? And mind you, Australia is a Commonwealth country. The Queen of England is still technically the Queen of Australia also. Yeah? But no more. Right? In India, most charges of sedition, I think my moderator is giving me 2 minutes, I can't try to repeat it. In India, most charges of sedition are dismissed since the Indian Supreme Court has adopted the British common law. Even the Indian Supreme Court has adopted the British common law. Right? In the case of Kerala, they say that if you charging someone for sedition, it must incite the violence. That's it, period. Right? If the word does not incite someone to violence, it's off sedition. Right? You can't charge him. Okay? And even in India, there's not been many charges for sedition. The last one was 1970s. Okay? In England, the last conviction for sedition occurred in 1909. Look at the Britishers. It's so smart. In their country, they don't charge anyone for sedition. But in the colonies, they charge Tiran, they charge Mahatma Gandhi. I don't know in Malaysia, they charge anyone during the time. But I think in Australia, they charge some people as well. But in their own country, the last conviction for sedition was in 1909. And thereafter, prosecution has become very rare. In Kenya, the law has been repealed. Okay? But in Malaysia, it's still alive and kicking. Okay, you still have things like inciting hatred against the king, and that brings you back to dark ages, as I said just now. Right? So the Sedition Act 1948 is a relic of its time. Okay? And I'm not saying that what I'm trying to say is that there are enough laws in our law books, right, to actually just, if you're talking about inciting racial strife. Okay? Somebody says some bad things against another race. Okay? And you say that because of that, the Sedition Act comes in there. But the same thing is contained in the Penal Code. It's Section 505 of the Penal Code, where there's a clear provision against people inciting racial strife, making racially inflammatory statements. Okay? Section 298, people making statements against another religion of the Penal Code. So you have laws which actually tackle these issues. The question is, why do we need the Sedition Act? There are enough laws. Even now, I think a week ago, I think yesterday, there were some amendments to the Penal Code saying that offences against parliamentary democracy. Okay? Which is something actually covered under the Sedition Act also. So we have laws like that are contained in the Penal Code that actually deal with this. And the best thing is that if you charge someone under the Penal Code, you have to prove intention. Because it's a criminal offence, and the basic ingredient to prove a criminal offence is mens rea, that is intention. But in the Sedition Act, you don't have to show intention. That's how draconic the law is. Okay? So there are enough sections in the Penal Code to give you these exigencies. Right? And to end, I would like to state that with all this, with what we've been saying just now, I would say that the latest charging is not passing. Okay? I would really urge the Attorney General to withdraw the charges against him. Because how has he incited hatred against him? He only stated something which is in the law books, in the Federal Constitution, saying that the king can be sued. In 1994, when the king came out during the famous Sultan of Johor case, where he slapped Douglas Gomez in the Kifil, if you guys remember, 1994, yeah? There were many seditious remarks made against the Sultan of Johor in Parliament. But nobody was arrested because all the schools were made the statements of armed. So one, you have selective prosecution, no one was charged. Two, you have a situation where someone has stated a fact, it's true, and he's still being charged with it. Why? Because he's not Singh, and he's, just because he's not Singh is member of opposition. That's the only logical thing that I can think of. So I would again urge the Attorney General to actually withdraw charges against Swathi, like they did before. They've done it before, they can do it again. Okay? And the Australian model and the Australian Law Reform Commission recommendations should be looked at for this purpose, because there are so many changes made within their own laws. The Australian Law Reform Commission should come up with so many suggestions and recommendations. That is something the Malaysian government should look at. Okay? And they've taken up sedition in the law books. Okay? And I would reiterate my stand that the Sedition Act should be repealed and thrown in